Act as if the universe is about to deliver everything you desire. You must begin with the end in mind, not just hope for it, not merely wish it would happen, but assume it has already occurred. This is the sacred art of creation. There is a divine law at work in your life, and it is this: what you feel to be true, what you accept as already yours in the unseen, will eventually clothe itself in the seen. The world you call reality bends to the inner world of imagination and belief. You are not waiting for the miracle. The miracle is waiting for you to awaken to your authority. Everything begins with awareness. The moment you become aware of your desire, a seed is planted. But a seed does not grow simply because it exists. It must be nurtured in the unseen, believed in even when there is no proof. And how do you nurture this seed? By living in the feeling that it is already so. You do not pray for what you want and then walk away doubting. You remain in the state of fulfillment. You walk, speak, breathe, and carry yourself as one who already possesses that which they have asked for. You must feel the joy now. You must feel the peace now. You must feel the gratitude now. It is this energy that calls the unseen into the seen. The law is impersonal, perfect, and immediate. But it responds not to words, not to effort, not even to need. It responds only to feeling. If you feel poor, no amount of affirmations can convince the universe otherwise. If you feel lonely, the world must reflect that loneliness back to you. But if you feel abundant, deeply and truly, if you rest in the sensation that all your needs are already met, then the outer world has no choice but to conform to that inner reality, because the outer is forever the shadow of the inner. This is why you must act as if, not to fool the world, but to align with the truth. Your reality is not shaped by what your eyes see. It is shaped by what your spirit believes. When you act as if you already have what you want, you are stepping into the timeline where it is already yours. You are choosing that version of reality from the infinite possibilities available to you. And that is no small thing. That is power. That is creation. That is faith in action. There is no room for doubt here. Doubt is the thief of manifestation. It is the voice that whispers, "It's not working," and pulls you out of the state just before the miracle. It is the illusion that something is missing, when in truth everything is already yours in another realm. Your job is not to make it happen. Your job is to believe that it has happened, and to allow it to unfold in divine order. You must learn to rest in the knowing that everything you've asked for is already on its way. Not someday, not far off, but now. The delay is only in your mind. Time is just the bridge. The unseen walks to become seen. You do not receive what you want, you receive what you are. So become the version of yourself who already has the life you dream of. Ask yourself, how would I walk if I knew the universe was delivering everything I desired? How would I speak? How would I treat others? How would I treat myself? Then walk like that. Speak like that. Treat yourself with that level of love, respect, and confidence, and you will find that the universe rushes in to meet you there, not because you begged it to, but because you aligned with the version of yourself where it was already done. Creation is finished, the future is not coming, it is waiting, waiting for your recognition, your assumption, your embodiment. The moment you dare to believe differently, the world rearranges itself around that belief. So act as if. Not someday, not later, not when you see the proof. Act as if today. Because the universe is not holding back your blessing. It is waiting for you to claim it as already yours. To live in the end means to take residence emotionally and mentally in the reality of your desire fulfilled. It is not a vague hope, not a wish cast into the wind, but a conscious and deliberate assumption that what you want has already happened. This is not about pretending or trying to trick the universe. It is about aligning your inner world so completely with the outcome you seek that the outer world has no choice but to mirror it back to you. This is the secret that few understand and even fewer practice consistently, and yet it is the cornerstone of all manifestation. When you live in the end, you no longer beg for your desire, you no longer chase it, you become it. You enter into a state of consciousness where it is already done, and this changes everything. The way you think changes, the way you carry yourself changes, the way you interpret life changes. You are no longer reacting to life as a beggar waiting for crumbs. You respond as someone who already owns the banquet table. That shift in identity, that shift in state, is the very force that bends reality. Imagine for a moment that you are longing for a healing in your life. Maybe it's physical healing, maybe emotional, or even spiritual. To live in the end means you no longer speak as someone who is still waiting for healing. You stop identifying with the sickness, with the pain, with the need. Instead, you begin to feel the joy, peace, and strength of someone who is already whole. You walk through your day as if restoration is complete. You speak with the confidence of someone who has already been delivered. You feel the gratitude that overflows from a heart that knows it is done. And that feeling, sustained, trusted, and accepted, begins to rearrange every aspect of your reality. This is not positive thinking. This is not about trying to be happy in the midst of lack. This is about assuming a new version of yourself who no longer lacks, no longer waits, no longer suffers. It is about shifting into the frequency of fulfillment. It is about coming into agreement with the life you truly desire and letting go of the version of you that has been shaped by fear, doubt, and delay. When you live in the end, the middle no longer troubles you. You're no longer shaken by circumstances because you understand that circumstances are nothing more than echoes of past assumptions. The natural mind resists this. It wants proof. It demands logic. It seeks confirmation from the outside before it will allow you to believe differently. But this process requires a different kind of faith, a knowing that precedes the evidence. The moment you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you step into a sacred agreement with unseen laws. You begin to draw to yourself the people, events, and opportunities that align with your inner state. Life begins to mirror back to you the version of yourself you've dared to believe in. This is why many remain stuck. They continue to rehearse the story of lack, pain, and failure while hoping for something different. But you cannot carry yesterday's consciousness into tomorrow's promise. To live in the end, you must lay down the weight of the past. You must stop asking how or when and start declaring that it is already so. The feeling must be real. You must close your eyes and see it clearly. Feel it deeply. Let it fill you until the outer world fades in comparison to the inner reality you've chosen to inhabit. You don't need the world to change first. You don't need their approval. You don't need the situation to improve before you allow yourself to feel the joy, the freedom, the fulfillment. You simply choose the state you desire and you remain there. You persist. You refuse to be moved by the shadows of old beliefs. You remain anchored in your new reality and you allow the world to catch up. Living in the end requires discipline. The mind will wander, old fears will whisper. Circumstances will tempt you to return to the familiar state of lack and longing. But your task is to persist, to remain in the end, even when everything around you says otherwise. The more you return to the state of fulfillment, the stronger it becomes. It becomes your default posture, and in time, what was once invisible becomes visible. Let the vision of your fulfilled desire become more real to you than the facts in front of you. Let the feeling of answered prayer live within your heart so fully that you can no longer remember what it felt like to live without it. When you walk in this kind of assumption, the laws of reality bend in your favor. You begin to witness the truth that the inner world governs the outer world, and your assumption of victory is the very force that births it into existence. Even now, the moment you choose to feel differently, you begin to shift timelines. You may not see it instantly with your eyes, but the change has begun. Reality is moving. Circumstances are responding. People are being rearranged. Paths are being cleared. But all of that starts with one thing: your decision to live as if it is already yours. And the universe honors that decision with absolute precision. This is the art of spiritual creation. You don't wait for life to deliver your dreams. You become the dream fulfilled, and life mirrors it back. Every day, return to the state. Revisit the scene in your mind. Rehearse the joy. Speak the words you would speak if it were true. Walk with the peace you would feel if it were complete. And little by little, that inner world spills into the outer one. Live in the end, not because you see it, but because you believe it. Not because others confirm it, but because your soul knows it. Stay there, rest there, and watch how the universe responds to the one who dared to declare, "It is done." Your inner state is the birthplace of your reality. Every thought you entertain, every feeling you dwell in, and every assumption you hold quietly and consistently becomes the mold from which your outer world is shaped. What appears outside of you is not random, nor is it the result of external forces alone. It is the reflection, the exact echo of your internal atmosphere. This truth is not easy to accept for most because it removes the illusion of blame and places the power squarely in your hands. But in that responsibility lies the greatest freedom. You are never at the mercy of the outer world. You are the source. If you feel powerless within, life will confirm that belief. It will surround you with situations that make you feel even more helpless. If you feel unworthy, opportunities will slip through your fingers, relationships will mirror rejection, and you'll find yourself entangled in experiences that reinforce the lie of inadequacy. But the moment you shift your inner state, when you begin to feel empowered, chosen, and aligned with love, your world begins to soften, respond, and transform. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. We live under the illusion that change begins externally. We are trained to fix, to manipulate, to hustle, but all of that is secondary. True transformation does not begin with action. It begins with identity. And identity is formed by state. Who you believe you are deeply and emotionally determines the shape your life takes. You may want abundance, but if you feel poor inside, life cannot contradict your dominant vibration. You may crave love, but if your heart is filled with fear, suspicion, and wounds from the past, then love will feel out of reach. Not because you are undeserving, but because your state of consciousness will always be honored first. The universe is faithful to reflect the truth you carry within. It doesn't judge, it doesn't punish, it doesn't reward like some moral judge in the sky. It simply responds to vibration. And your vibration is nothing more than the emotional atmosphere you cultivate every day. What do you feel when you wake up? What do you imagine when you close your eyes? What do you say to yourself when no one is listening? These subtle energies shape the world around you. They act as invisible instructions that the universe follows without resistance. You may look at your life today and feel disappointed, even betrayed. But the outer world is not mocking you. It is showing you something. It is a mirror, not a verdict. And mirrors do not lie, but they also do not punish. They reflect what is before them. If you change what the mirror sees, the reflection must also change. This is the simplicity and the depth of the spiritual law. And that law does not fail. There is no secret path, no mystery formula. The answer is always the same. Change your inner world and your outer world will follow, not through force, not through effort, but through resonance. Life meets you at the level of your assumption. It rises to greet your deepest beliefs, not your surface hopes. You may wish for success, but if you feel like a failure, you will continue to attract scenarios that match that vibration. The feeling must be corrected before the fact can appear. That is why feelings are the foundation of manifestation. There are no neutral states. Every moment you are radiating a frequency. Whether you are aware of it or not, you are always broadcasting something to the universe. And the universe, without resistance or delay, sends back a matching broadcast. This is not personal, it is principle. If you want to know what you've been feeling and believing, look at what surrounds you. Your relationships, your finances, your environment, they are all reports from your inner world. They are feedback, not fate. They are invitations to look within, not punishments for what you did wrong. This is why nothing changes until you change. You can move cities, end relationships, switch careers, but if your inner state remains the same patterns will follow you, because the problem was never out there. It was never the job, the person, or the place. It was the energy you carried within you, and it recreated the same lesson in a new form until you were willing to see it, feel it, and heal it. But the moment you become aware of your inner state, and more importantly, choose to change it, everything around you begins to shift. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but definitely and surely. You might start to feel more peaceful before anything changes outside. You might notice new opportunities arise, new people appear, or long-standing problems begin to dissolve. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations that your world is responding to a new emotional blueprint. The work is not to control the outside, the work is to master the inside. This is why daily imagination, prayer, meditation, and gratitude are not just spiritual practices, they are tools of transformation. They allow you to rewire your emotional state, to settle into a new identity, to affirm a new version of reality. They help you build a new home in consciousness, and the world rushes to furnish that home with matching experiences. So ask yourself, what state have I been living in? Not what do I want, but what do I feel? Am I walking through life with the feeling of peace or the fear of lack? Am I embodying love or rehearsing rejection? Am I expecting things to go well or am I bracing for disappointment? These inner climates matter more than anything else. They are the architects of your world. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be enlightened, but you must be willing to take responsibility for your inner world. You must be willing to observe, to correct, and to choose again. Every moment gives you that chance. And every time you choose a higher state, a state of faith, of joy, of wholeness, you are sending out a new message to life itself. This is who I am now, and life will respond accordingly. The truth is, you are more powerful than you've ever realized, not because of what you do, but because of what you believe, what you feel, what you embody. When you take ownership of your inner state, you take ownership of your reality. And that is when you begin to experience true freedom, not freedom from circumstances, but freedom over them. Because when your inner world is settled, aligned, and clear, your outer world becomes a sacred reflection of your soul's truest desire. Imagination is not a childish escape or a meaningless mental exercise. It is the very fabric of creation. Everything that exists in the world around you once began as a thought, an image, a vision within someone's mind. Every invention, every building, every piece of art, every movement of progress, it was first unseen. It existed only in the invisible realm of imagination before it took shape in the world of form. What you imagine and emotionally accept as true begins to materialize, because imagination is the gateway through which spirit enters matter. It is not secondary to reality. It is the origin of it. To engage your imagination consciously is to step into the position of a creator. Most people use imagination unconsciously. They imagine worst-case scenarios, they replay old traumas, they entertain fears and doubts. Then they do this without realizing that they are planting seeds into the soil of their future. The mind does not distinguish between real and imagined when emotion is involved. It takes your feelings as instructions. And so when you feel fear, when you picture failure, when you constantly dwell in images of what you do not want, your life begins to shape itself around those images. That is not punishment. That is law. But when you learn to discipline your imagination, to fill it with images that align with your desires, you begin to see a transformation that feels nothing short of miraculous. You are no longer walking through life hoping for change. You are creating it. Not through struggle, but through inner alignment. You begin to see that the world is not happening to you. It is happening through you. You are its source. And the clearer the image you hold, the more intense the emotion you feel, the faster that image begins to draw form around. Imagination is not just about visualizing, it is about stepping into the scene of your fulfilled desire and living from it as if it were already done. You don't look at it from a distance as something you want. You enter it. You close your eyes and you see it. You smell the air, you hear the sounds, you feel the joy, the gratitude, the peace. And the more real you make that inner experience, the more quickly the outer world conforms to match it. The scene you repeat with emotion becomes the blueprint for your reality. Many people struggle because they think imagination is just fantasy. But imagination governed by desire, faith, and persistence becomes prophecy. It becomes the script that life must act out. The body begins to respond to it. Circumstances begin to shift. People are drawn in. The invisible begins to become visible. You are not forcing it. You're not chasing it. You are allowing the universe to express what you have already accepted within. This is the divine gift you've been given. This is the power that separates you from mere instinct and reaction. You have the power to create by choosing what you allow your mind to dwell on. What you see consistently in the inner world is what you begin to walk into in the outer world. That is why guarding your imagination is more important than guarding your money, your reputation, or your plans. Those things are all temporary. But imagination is eternal, and it is always creating. Your present circumstances do not matter as much as the images you carry within. You could be surrounded by limitation, but if your inner world is rich, abundant, and filled with the images of success and joy, then your circumstances will begin to reflect that. The world cannot resist a soul who lives in the certainty of imagination. It must respond. It is compelled to rearrange itself around the vibration of your inner vision, not because of wishful thinking, but because imagination, when accepted as reality, becomes prayer in its highest form. You may not realize it, but you are always imagining. Every worry, every assumption, every idle thought is a form of imagination. The question is not if you are imagining, but what you are imagining. Are you picturing the life you want, or are you replaying fears you've inherited? Are you walking in scenes of love and fulfillment, or are you rehearsing lack and rejection? Your results will answer that question more honestly than words ever could. The world doesn't respond to your desires. It responds to your dominant inner pictures. This is why those who change their imagination change their life. They don't need to convince anyone. They don't even need to announce it. They go within and they begin to live in the scenes of the person they wish to be. They feel the joy before it arrives. They speak as if it is already theirs. They treat their imagination as sacred, knowing that it is the womb of all that is to come. They revisit their inner scene every day, every night, until it feels more real than what the world currently shows them. And then, inevitably, the world changes. You don't need permission to begin. You don't need evidence to believe. You simply need the courage to go within and see yourself whole, loved, successful, healed. And you must keep seeing it again and again. Let it become so familiar that you can't imagine anything else. Let it become your home. Because what you see inwardly, you will visit outwardly. That is the divine pattern. The mistake many make is waiting for the outside to catch up before they allow themselves to believe. But by then, the moment of creation is gone. You must dare to feel it now. The moment you do, the vibration shifts, the signal changes. You've moved into alignment with a higher version of your life. And though you may not see the evidence yet, the current has already turned. Your imagination has spoken and the universe has heard. This is how the impossible becomes inevitable, not by effort, but by inner conviction, not by begging, but by imagining so vividly, so completely that the outer world must respond. You begin to live not as a reactor, but as a creator. You walk through life knowing that what you see with your eyes is temporary, but what you see within is eternal, powerful, and alive. And when you give your heart fully to that inner vision, the outer world bows to meet it. To act from the state, not toward the state, is to live in alignment with the truth you have already accepted within yourself. It is the quiet yet powerful decision to become the version of yourself who already has what you once longed for, instead of striving to become that person through effort, delay, or desperation. This principle is subtle yet transformative, and it is often misunderstood. Most people act toward their desires. They try, they chase, they struggle, but all of this effort comes from a place of lack. It begins with the assumption that they do not yet have what they want, and so their actions only reinforce that absence. But to act from the state is to assume the desire is already fulfilled, and to live as though the journey is complete, even while the evidence is still forming. When you act towards something, you're climbing uphill, constantly checking to see how far you've come, measuring yourself against a goal that always seems just out of reach. But when you act from something, the energy changes entirely. You're no longer proving, no longer waiting, no longer reacting. You are responding from a place of fullness. You speak differently. You walk differently. You make decisions that reflect confidence, trust, and assurance. You don't question your worthiness because you already know. You don't look around for signs. It is enough to know that the seed has been planted and that life responds to what you are, not what you are trying to become. This is the heart of spiritual manifestation. It isn't about convincing the world to give you something. It's about becoming the embodiment of the thing you desire so completely that the world reflects it back without resistance. That is why this principle doesn't require struggle. It requires identity. Who are you being right now? What state are you acting from? If you desire abundance, are your thoughts, emotions, and actions flowing from someone who is already abundant? Or are they driven by fear, scarcity, and the belief that you must earn your way into a better life? The distinction makes all the difference. You cannot fake the inner world. You can pretend outwardly, you can speak the right affirmations, take all the prescribed actions, but if your inner state contradicts your outer performance, your results will match the state, not the performance. That's why the work is always internal first. Your state precedes the manifestation. It lays the foundation. And once the foundation is firm, your actions become natural, inspired, and aligned, not forced or desperate. You are no longer trying to become, you are being. You are no longer wishing, you are embodying. This is not arrogance, it is spiritual intelligence. It is knowing that you are not separate from your desire. The moment you imagined it, the moment you felt it as true, it became yours. You do not need to wait for life to give you permission to believe. You give yourself that permission, and everything else begins to organize around that belief. Acting from the state means your faith is not in the future. It is in the now. It is in the invisible reality that has already taken shape within you. You begin to move through life differently. You don't chase people because you no longer feel incomplete. You don't compromise your worth because you know you are already standing in the center of divine favor. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because the approval you sought has been replaced by inner alignment. The decisions you make are guided not by fear of missing out, but by the quiet certainty that everything aligned with your highest good is already yours. This is what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. It is to trust the reality within more than the circumstances without. You might still be in the same job, the same home, the same struggle, but your state has shifted. And once the state shifts, the outer conditions begin to bend. Opportunities arise, doors open, people respond differently, and situations unfold in ways that feel like divine orchestration, but it all begins within. It doesn't mean you never act. It means your action is inspired from the state, not driven by desperation to get to the state. There is a deep peace in this way of living. You are not rushed. You are not panicked. You are no longer negotiating with life from a place of fear. You know where you stand, you know what is yours, and because you know, you begin to see confirmation after confirmation of what you've already accepted within. This kind of inner authority cannot be faked, but it can be cultivated. It comes from repeated practice, from visiting your desired state again and again until it becomes more familiar than your current reality. It comes from silencing the voices that tell you to wait, to beg, to settle. It comes from stepping into the shoes of your future self and walking in them until they fit. And they will fit because they were made for you. You must remember, the universe does not respond to your wants. It responds to your assumptions. When you act as if you are already who you desire to be, you are making a claim on that version of yourself. You are declaring, without needing to see the evidence, that this is your truth. That is the posture of faith. That is the power of imagination in motion. When you act from the state of love, life brings you love. When you act from the state of confidence, life gives you reasons to feel confident. When you act from the state of success, doors open that seem permanently shut. But it is not the door that creates the success. It is the success you felt within that opened the door. Everything begins inside. Everything begins with the state. You do not act to become. You act because you already are. And the moment that shift happens, life begins to echo that truth in ways that feel effortless, natural, and perfectly timed. You look back and realize that the turning point wasn't when the money came, or the relationship arrived, or the breakthrough occurred. The real turning point was the moment you changed your state and began to act, speak, and live from the truth that it was already done. That moment was the seed of every blessing that followed. The future is not something that is coming to you from the outside. It is not a random series of events waiting to happen. It is being chosen by you, moment by moment, through the inner states you allow yourself to live in. Creation is finished. Everything you will ever desire already exists in the unseen. The only thing that changes is your awareness of it, your alignment with it. You are not waiting for your future to begin. It is waiting for you to enter the version of yourself that already lives in it. The life you dream of is not far away. It is as close as your next assumption. This is where most people miss the mark. They believe the future is something they walk toward, but in truth, it is something they call into the present by the way they think, feel, and embody their identity. You do not become successful by chasing success. You become it by stepping into the mindset, the emotional posture, the self-perception of someone who already is. You do not attract love by needing it. You attract it by living in the vibration of one who is already full of love, already aligned with its frequency, already at peace with being deeply loved and deeply worthy. The future bends when you do. When you shift your state, you shift your timeline. Every version of you already exists. The one who is healed, the one who is joyful, the one who is abundant, the one who walks in peace. That version is already real. You're not creating that version through force or effort. You're selecting it through feeling and belief. The question is never, when will it happen? The real question is, when will I decide to become the version of myself who already has it? And that decision is not made through words. It is made through feeling, through vibration, through the conscious surrender of the old story and the full embodiment of a new one. You must come to see yourself not as a beggar of blessings, but as a chooser of realities. Your future is already done. It is your job to enter it with faith, with alignment, and with the awareness that time is not your enemy. Time is simply the bridge through which your unseen assumption becomes seen. The delay you often feel is not punishment. It is the universe making arrangements to bring what you've already accepted into full manifestation. The more steady your faith, the more fluid the process. But if you waver, if you shift states constantly, if you keep uprooting the seed of belief by doubting and questioning, you make the process heavier, slower. Not because the manifestation is hard, but because you are not yet settled in the state that receives it. You must live with the awareness that everything you desire is already yours in another dimension, and through the doorway of imagination and faith, you bring it forward. The universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. If you see yourself as someone who always waits, who never receives, who is always just one step away from happiness, then life reflects that belief. But when you begin to know that what you ask for is already done, when you begin to speak and act like someone who has already arrived at their destination, the world starts to echo that certainty. Faith is not passive. It is not idle hope. Faith is movement. Faith is identity. Faith is choosing the state of fulfillment before any evidence appears. And that is the most powerful act you can perform. To walk as if the unseen has already become seen. To wake up with the feeling that the future is not a mystery, but a memory you are now recalling. That's what it means to walk in alignment. That's what it means to move with the energy of completion. And when you do, you are not surprised when the evidence begins to show. You are not shocked when the door opens. You are not caught off guard when the breakthrough comes. You are calm. You are ready. You are at peace because you were already living in it long before it appeared. This is why the inner work matters more than anything else. You can strategize, plan, hustle, and strive. But if your inner world is not aligned with your desired reality, you will find yourself running in circles. The path is not about effort alone. It is about clarity of being. Who are you now? What version of you are you being today? Because that is the version the universe responds to, not the one you hope to be, not the one you promise to become, but the one you are right now. The reason some people seem to manifest effortlessly is not because they are lucky. It is because they are unshakably aligned. They do not entertain conflicting stories. They do not water their doubts. They do not sabotage their own becoming by falling back into old versions of themselves. They choose, they decide, they hold their frequency. This is not magic. It is law. It is how the unseen becomes seen. You are the cause, not the effect. And when you truly grasp that, you stop living like a victim of time, of circumstances, of delays. You begin to rise. You begin to create from within. You stop asking when your time will come, and instead you step into the truth that your time is now. Because you've chosen it, because you've aligned with it. Yes? Because you've made peace with the fact that the only thing standing between you and your desire is the version of yourself who still believes it's far away. So shift. Not someday, not when things improve, but now. Shift into the version of yourself who no longer wonders, who no longer doubts, who no longer negotiates with fear. Be the one who already holds the answer, who already walks in fulfillment, who already lives as though the prayer is answered, the healing is complete, the breakthrough has arrived, and watch how everything begins to rearrange itself to support that truth. Not because you forced it, but because you finally believed it.